Hi, everyone. Welcome to Introduction to Community-Based Planning and Design. This is workshop 1 of 5. So the purpose of these workshops were made possible by the Northwest Native Language Resource Grant, which was funded by the Office of Indian Education. This is part of a series of 15 workshops, which will cover community-based planning, design, and development. The workshops will cover the fundamentals necessary to learn tools, techniques, and processes to develop a community-based project plan for your language needs. My name is Kelly LaChance, and I am a citizen of the Confederated Tribes of Siletz, and I will be your workshop presenter. So for today's agenda, we will look at what is community-based planning? Why does it matter? Key principles and approaches, and looking ahead to week 2. So the learning objectives, which we will be covering today, will introduce the principles and importance of community-based planning in Native communities. Participants will explore grounded approaches to project development and learn how to involve local voices, like your community from the start. You'll learn how to define community-based planning and its purpose, understand the importance of culturally grounded approaches, and identify key stakeholders and engagement strategies. So what exactly is community-based planning? It is a collaborative approach to designing and guiding projects, which is rooted in local knowledge, priorities, and values. And it also centers the community voice and leadership throughout the process. So why does it matter in communities? Well, for one, it aligns with sovereignty, self-determination, and tribal needs. It also helps to build trust, capacity, and long-term commitment. But it also respects the unique community histories and relationships. So let's look at an example of what a top-down approach versus a community-based approach is. So top-down is like when there may be just a certain, maybe 1 or 2 people that are making the decisions. So you can see with a top-down approach that it is externally driven, and some things it is, even less sustainable because they haven't had the input of the community. And most importantly, it may miss the local needs. Whereas a community-based approach is locally initiated, it has greater ownership because it's involving everyone in a community. And with that, it reflects real priorities that you can use in your project planning. So let's look at some guiding principles of community-based planning. Well, of course, it's inclusion. And so all voices, especially elders and youth, are included into that. It also includes respect because you're looking at including the community. So the respect factor is there, which you get a wider frame of including cultural, spiritual, and historical grounding. And then you also include reciprocity, which is an important part of this as well, to where the community is also giving back to this process as well. So it's learning to give back more than you take. And it also builds transparency as well, to where you're developing that open communication and building trust. So who should be involved? So first and foremost, you want to look at your potential stakeholders, which will include elders, youth, and any type of fluent speakers that you have in your community that you want to be a part of this. And it's always a good idea to have one or two folks from tribal council to be a part of this, as well as you want to include local educators who may be involved in teaching the language within the community or within the local schools, and any type of cultural leaders that's within your community as well that you think would like to be involved and would be important for them to be involved, as well as any partner organizations that are part of this project. You want them to be involved as well. So, what are the key components of community-based planning? Well, for one, it helps you to develop a community vision and long-term goals. It also helps to assess your needs and strengths within your community. And it also encourages collaborative decision making. And also, in this process, you can also create an ongoing feedback and any kind of changes that you may need to make in this whole process as well. So, what are the community-based planning tools that you'll be needing, and what do those mean? Well, for one, you will need to establish a steering committee in this process, and we'll talk more about that in upcoming workshops. Also, what's part of this is developing community surveys and then also conducting community meetings in which you're convening your community and informing them of the project and the process that you'll be working on. And also, a part of this is forming focus groups who will be helpful in giving information as well as helping with the process. And another part of this is key interviews. You may choose to interview folks within your community and identify folks that you think would be able to contribute to that. And so those would be the key interviews. So let's look at the community-based planning elements. So we talked about the steering committee a little bit. So we'll cover that a little bit right now, but in our upcoming workshops, we'll go more in depth than that. So looking at the steering committee, so what community folks would be represented on your steering committee? So it's a good idea right now to think about that. And we'll get in more into the criteria as well. And also survey development. A survey is a great way to collect information from your community. And so we'll get more into survey development as well. But this is a good time to introduce that and think about like types of questions that you would like to ask your community. And so right now, you could reflect on 3 open-ended and 3 closed-ended questions that you would like to take into your survey. So that would be a good exercise for you to do right now. And also, looking at scheduling your community meetings. These are another important part of community-based planning. And so looking ahead, like what types of incentives would you provide to your community to attend? And what types of strategies would you need for that participation? So let's look at this community conditions list activities. So you would choose 3 community conditions that are barriers to your goals in your community. So go ahead and think about that. You can do that at this time. Choose 3 community conditions that are barriers to goals in your community. You can also pause this video if you would like to take some more time with that. And then also choose one that is the biggest barrier to long-term accomplishment and share that. This was from a previous presentation, but we shared it in the chat. But what you can do is write that down in your notes along with the 3 community conditions. So once again, you would choose 3 community conditions that are barriers to goals in your community, and then choose one that is the biggest long-term accomplishment. So that will be your homework for right now. So looking back on the exercise that we did, I would like you to save that information because you will need that in the upcoming exercises. So be sure and record that and save that information. So we are already through the first workshop, and we will be moving on to the workshop 2, which will be community-based planning tools. And in that, you will explore tools that support collaborative planning, and you will practice applying those selected tools. So thank you again for attending, and we will see you in the next module. Thank you again, everyone, and you all have a great day. Thank you.